In a city that never slept, where skyscrapers seemed to touch the stars and the streets were always bustling with life, lived a man named Leonardo. Owner of a luxury hotel chain that spanned the globe, he had more money than he could spend in a lifetime. Sports cars, mansions, private jets, all were within his reach. But despite all this wealth, Leonardo felt a profound emptiness. High atop his penthouse, surrounded by everything money could buy, he felt incredibly lonely. The faces around him were always the same, fake smiles and self-interest that only cared about his money. He spent his days in meetings and grand events, but at night, when the city quieted down, he was just another lonely man with a glass of wine in hand. One night, as he gazed at the city lights, Leonardo remembered something he hadn't thought of in years: his childhood. Growing up in a humble neighborhood, happiness came from simple things, like sharing an ice cream with a friend or playing ball in the street. That was a happiness money could never buy. He felt a pang of longing and decided he needed to do something drastic to reconnect with that lost feeling. And so it was that on any given morning, Leonardo decided to disguise himself as a beggar. He put away his expensive suits and donned simple, worn-out clothes. He looked in the mirror and hardly recognized himself, but felt an excitement he hadn't felt in a long time. He grabbed an old hat and ventured out onto the streets, leaving behind his life of luxury. Walking the bustling sidewalks, Leonardo felt a mix of freedom and nervousness. No one gave him a second glance. He was just another anonymous face in the crowd. And that was exactly what he wanted. Without the weight of his identity, he could experience life in an entirely new way. With his heart pounding, Leonardo was ready to embark on this journey. He wanted to understand what truly mattered in life and, perhaps, find something money couldn't buy: a genuine connection, true love. He didn't know where this adventure would take him, but he was eager to find out. That night, Leonardo couldn't sleep. His mind buzzed with memories of his childhood and a burning desire to reconnect with people in a genuine way. He got out of his king-size bed, crossed the vast living room of his penthouse, and stood before the panoramic window overlooking the illuminated city. Down below, car lights moved like stars in a constantly moving universe. But to him, everything seemed still, lifeless. It was in that moment, with his heart racing and his mind made up, that he had a crazy idea. What if he left it all behind for a while? What if he, for a brief period, ceased to be the untouchable tycoon and lived as an ordinary person, or better yet, someone who had nothing? The idea was absurd, even dangerous, but precisely because of that, incredibly seductive. Leonardo smiled for the first time in weeks. He knew he needed a plan. The next morning, still under the timid light of dawn, Leonardo began to prepare his new identity. He descended to the basement of his building, where there was a small room that no one used. There he found old clothes, a tattered coat, and a pair of worn-out boots. He put on the clothes and looked at himself in a stained mirror. The transformation was striking. The refined and powerful man had disappeared, replaced by someone who seemed to have been swallowed by the hardships of life. But it wasn't just the clothes that needed to change. Leonardo practiced walking with a more hunched posture, hiding his confident gaze, and slowing down the elegant stride he had cultivated over the years. He knew he couldn't leave traces of his true identity. To the world, he would now be just another homeless person. He left the penthouse with only a few coins in his pocket, a worn hat on his head, and a heart full of anticipation. He walked the busy streets, observing everything around him with fresh eyes. People passed him by without a second glance. To them, he was invisible, and strangely, this brought him a sense of freedom he had never experienced before. As night fell, Leonardo found an alley to rest. Sitting there, surrounded by dirty walls with the distant sound of the city in the background, he felt a mix of fear and excitement. He was in the midst of his own sociological experiment, ready to discover if the human connections he longed for were still possible, even when he looked like someone the world had forgotten. In that dark alley, Leonardo closed his eyes and made a promise to himself. He would see this through to the end, no matter what happened. And with that promise, he fell asleep, more connected to the world than he had ever been before. The sun was already high when Leonardo woke up the next morning in the alley where he had spent the night. He stretched, feeling every muscle in his body protest against the hardness of the ground. It was a stark contrast to the comfort of his king-size bed, but he knew this experience would be transformative. With slow steps, Leonardo walked through the bustling streets, observing life around him from a completely new perspective. Amidst the city buzz, he spotted a small corner cafe. It was a modest place, with an old facade and glass windows that hinted at a cozy atmosphere. Drawn by the smell of fresh coffee and freshly baked bread, he decided to go inside. The cafe was bustling, with people coming and going, chatting and laughing. Leonardo found a quiet corner and sat down. Soon, a young waitress approached with a welcoming smile. She had bright eyes and an aura of kindness that was impossible to ignore. Her name, as her badge revealed, was Clara. "Good morning. What can I get for you today?" she asked, without a trace of judgment in her voice, just genuine curiosity. Leonardo hesitated for a moment, not used to ordering without thinking about the price. "Just a coffee, please," he replied, trying to sound casual. Clara smiled again and took his order. "Of course, be right back." As he waited, Leonardo watched Clara serve other customers. She was efficient and attentive, treating each person with the same courtesy she had shown him. This impressed him. In his world of luxury, kindness was often a scarce resource, reserved only for those who could afford it. Shortly after, Clara returned with a steaming cup of coffee. "Here you go," she said, placing the cup in front of him. "You look tired. Is everything okay?" Leonardo was surprised by the question. It was rare for someone to genuinely ask how he was doing. "Yes, just a rough night," he replied, keeping the truth hidden. Clara nodded, her eyes showing understanding. "Sometimes, a hot coffee can work wonders," she said, before moving on to serve another customer. As Leonardo savored the coffee, he felt a warmth that came not just from the drink. It was the first time in a long while that someone had shown genuine concern for him, without knowing who he was. He watched Clara interact with others, her kindness and empathy evident in every gesture. There was something about her that deeply touched him. Leonardo began to frequent the cafe every day, always sitting in the same corner. And every day, Clara treated him with the same dignity and respect, regardless of his worn appearance. They started exchanging small conversations, and each interaction left Leonardo more enchanted. He discovered that Clara had dreams and hopes, but also faced challenges and sorrows. She was a real, genuine person, and that was exactly what he had been searching for. In this small corner cafe, surrounded by the aroma of coffee and Clara's warmth, Leonardo began to understand that true wealth was not in material things, but in the human connections he had neglected for so long. And so, his journey of self-discovery gained a new purpose, guided by the unexpected encounter with the waitress who treated everyone, including him, with a kindness that money could not buy. As the days passed, Leonardo began to feel that the small cafe was becoming a refuge for him. He continued to visit daily, always choosing the same discreet corner. Clara, the waitress with bright eyes, had become a constant in his new routine. Every morning, she greeted him with a warm smile and a steaming coffee, and gradually, their casual conversations began to evolve into something deeper. One morning, when the cafe was relatively calm, Clara sat down for a moment at Leonardo's table, holding her own coffee cup. "You come here every day, but I've never asked your name," she said, looking at him with genuine curiosity. Leonardo smiled, an expression he rarely showed before embarking on this journey. "My name is Leo," he replied, opting for a simpler version of his true name. "Nice to meet you, Leo," said Clara, reaching out her hand. "I'm Clara, but you already know that." They laughed together, and the conversation began to flow more easily. Clara shared about her childhood, growing up in a small town, her dreams of traveling the world, and how she ended up working at the cafe to save money. Leonardo, in turn, spoke about his life before becoming a beggar, carefully omitting details that would reveal his true identity. He talked about the sense of freedom he had recently found and how it made him feel more human. With each encounter, Leonardo felt more connected to Clara. He admired how she saw the world, always with resilient optimism despite challenges. Clara, on the other hand, was intrigued by Leo, the mysterious man with a past he kept secret. She respected his silence but couldn't help feeling increasingly curious. On a particularly rainy afternoon, when the cafe was nearly empty, Clara brought 2 coffees and sat next to Leonardo. "Leo, do you believe in second chances?" she asked, her eyes fixed on his. Leonardo was silent for a moment, reflecting on all the opportunities he had had and wasted, and how he was now trying to find a new path. "I do, Clara. Sometimes I think second chances are all we have." Clara smiled, a smile full of hope. "Me too. And I think somehow we all deserve to find our place in the world." Clara's words touched Leonardo deeply. He realized that through her, he was rediscovering something he had lost: the ability to believe in the goodness of people and the possibility of a better future. Their conversations became a highlight of his days, and he looked forward to each meeting, knowing that with Clara, he could simply be Leo, a man seeking redemption. One evening, after closing time, Clara found Leonardo waiting at the cafe entrance. "Want to take a walk?" she asked, holding a large umbrella big enough for both of them. They walked together through the wet streets, talking and laughing, sharing stories and dreams under the gentle rain. For Leonardo, those moments were like balm for the soul. Clara didn't know who he really was, but she treated him with a dignity and respect he hadn't encountered in a long time. And with each step they took together, Leonardo felt their friendship deepening, bringing a new and unexpected warmth to his lonely heart. His friendship with Clara was changing Leonardo in ways he had never imagined. Instead of feeling like a disguised millionaire, he felt like just Leo, someone who was finally beginning to understand the true value of human connections. Leo's days in the cafe with Clara were like small oases of human warmth amidst his isolated life as a millionaire. But not everything was as simple as it seemed. As his friendship with Clara grew, Leo began to notice the invisible barriers that separated their lives. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, Leo decided to visit the cafe, a time he typically avoided to steer clear of the usual crowd. Upon entering, he saw Clara engaged in lively conversation with a group of friends, all young like her, dressed in simple clothes and genuine smiles. Leo paused for a moment, feeling like an intruder in a world that wasn't his own. He hesitated to approach, realizing for the first time how his presence there might seem odd to Clara's friends. He was an older man, dressed in worn clothes, carrying the weight of a life they could hardly imagine. Clara noticed Leo at the entrance and waved to him enthusiastically. "Leo, so glad you came," she called out with a broad smile. Clara's friends looked at him with curiosity, some with expressions of suspicion. Leo approached slowly, feeling the weight of prejudice and distrust hanging in the air. He wondered what Clara had told them about him, if anything at all. During that afternoon, Leo realized that no matter how much time he spent in that cafe, he would never truly be one of them. His past and his true identity were insurmountable barriers that separated their lives. He felt torn between gratitude for Clara and sadness for not being able to fully share her life with her and her friends. In the days that followed, Leo faced other obstacles. He saw how some people looked at him with disdain or pity, as if his presence were a stain on the cafe's landscape. Some regular customers avoided his table, opting to sit elsewhere. He realized that, despite his disguise, he could never fully escape the marks of his former life. Clara noticed the subtle shift in atmosphere but never mentioned anything directly. She continued to treat him with the same kindness and warmth as always, but Leo knew there was a gap between them that couldn't be ignored. He wondered if he would ever be able to overcome these barriers, if one day Clara and her friends could accept him fully as he was, without judgment or reservation. For Leo, these obstacles were a constant reminder of how fragile human connections were and how difficult it was to build bridges between such different worlds. He struggled to balance his desire for authenticity with the need to protect his past and identity. And deep in his heart, he wondered if his friendship with Clara could withstand the challenges that life continued to throw their way. As Clara and Leo conversed animatedly in the cafe, something changed in the air between them. Clara could sense there was something more behind Leo's calm smile, something he held carefully. She noticed how he would sometimes gaze into the distance, lost in thought. After a moment of comfortable silence, Clara decided it was time to break the ice. She gently placed her hand over Leo's, resting on the table. "Leo," she began softly, "I feel like there's something you haven't told me, something important." Leo hesitated for a moment, feeling the weight of Clara's words. He knew it was time to reveal his true identity, but uncertainty gripped him. He looked into Clara's eyes, searching for any hint of how she would react. Finally, taking a deep breath, Leo decided to open his heart. He told her about his life as a millionaire, about feeling trapped in a gilded cage he had built himself. He spoke of his journey of self-discovery, about the emptiness he felt despite all his wealth. And finally, he revealed the truth about his identity, his real name, and the world he had left behind when he disguised himself as a beggar. Clara listened attentively to every word Leo spoke, her eyes showing not surprise but understanding. She gently squeezed his hand, conveying comfort and support. When Leo finished, Clara smiled tenderly. "Leo," she said softly, "thank you for trusting me with this. Your journey is amazing and courageous." Leo felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He hadn't expected Clara to judge him or see him differently. She accepted him with all his past, struggles, and choices. That afternoon in the cafe became a moment of deep connection, where masks were removed and the true essence of both was revealed. As the days passed, Leo and Clara continued their friendship with a new foundation of trust and mutual understanding. Leo found in Clara not just a friend, but a confidant and a guide in his journey of personal rediscovery. And Clara, in turn, discovered in Leo a quiet strength and a determination to live authentically, regardless of external expectations. And so, in that small corner cafe, surrounded by the aroma of coffee and the soft murmur of conversations, Leo and Clara found something rare and precious. Each other, exactly as they were, without reservations, without secrets. Leo sat alone in his luxurious apartment, gazing out at the bustling city through panoramic windows. The silence around him was deafening, contrasting with the constant buzz he experienced at the cafe with Clara. In his mind, he replayed the moments spent with her. Their sincere conversations, shared smiles, the sense of belonging to something greater than his own isolated life. Yet, despite the connection he felt with Clara, Leo couldn't escape the internal conflict consuming him. He questioned whether he had the right to continue hiding his true identity from her. The lie he had built to connect with people as a beggar was beginning to weigh on his conscience. He wondered if Clara would still accept him if she knew who he really was. A wealthy, powerful, and lonely man. Leo knew he couldn't go on like this forever. Each time he returned to his extravagant apartment, he felt the weight of his duality. The luxury around him felt increasingly hollow, while his disguised life at the cafe with Clara brought him a sense of purpose and humanity he had never experienced before. The nights were the worst. Leo lay in his king-size bed, surrounded by silk sheets and soft pillows, but his sleep was interrupted by turbulent thoughts. He wondered if there was a way to reconcile the two parts of his life, if it was possible to be truly honest with himself and others without losing everything he had built. Leo's internal conflict pushed him into emotional dead ends. He found himself trapped between the desire to maintain the precious connection he had with Clara and the paralyzing fear of revealing the truth and losing everything. He questioned his own motivations. Was he seeking genuine redemption or just another way to hide from the loneliness that haunted him? As time passed, Leo's internal conflict intensified, casting shadows over the happy moments he shared with Clara. He knew the decision he made would have profound consequences not only for himself but also for the friendship he valued so much. Leo needed to find an answer to his dilemma before his doubts consumed him completely. Leo was sitting in the cafe, lost in his tumultuous thoughts. He stirred his coffee absent-mindedly, trying to find a solution to the internal conflict consuming him. Clara immediately noticed that something was wrong. She approached with her usual kindness, placing a comforting hand on Leo's shoulder. "Leo, you look worried. What's going on?" she asked, genuine concern in her expression. Leo hesitated for a moment, looking into Clara's eyes. He felt a wave of gratitude for having her in his life, yet at the same time, a sharp pain for not being able to fully share his burden with her. "Clara," he began sincerely, "there's something I need to tell you." Before Leo could continue, an elderly man approached their table. He was a regular customer at the cafe, known for his kindness and friendly smile. He glanced at Leo for a moment, as if recognizing a friend, and then turned to Clara. "Sorry to interrupt, Clara, but I'd like to pay for everyone's coffee today," the man said with a generous smile. Clara looked at the man, surprised and grateful. "Oh, you don't have to worry about that, Mr. Garcia. You're already such a loyal customer," she replied with a smile. Mr. Garcia nodded gently. "It's the least I can do. Everyone deserves a little kindness, especially on days like these." He turned to Leo, who was still processing the unexpected gesture. "Especially you, my friend," Mr. Garcia said with a nod, before stepping away to continue his morning routine. Leo looked at Clara, his eyes misty. He never expected such kindness from a stranger, and it deeply touched him. "Clara," he began again, his voice choked with emotion. "I wanted to tell you that." Clara gently interrupted him, holding his hand firmly. "Leo, you don't have to say anything right now. Just know that I'm here for you, no matter what." And in that moment, as the cafe around them returned to its normal rhythm, Leo felt overwhelmed by a mix of emotions. Gratitude for Mr. Garcia's gesture, relief for having Clara by his side, and renewed determination to confront the internal conflict that plagued him. He realized that even in life's uncertainties, there were moments of kindness and connection worth preserving. Clara was organizing some shelves in the cafe when she came across something unexpected. As she moved some old books to clean the space, an envelope fell to the floor with a faint rustle. Intrigued, she picked it up and saw her name delicately written on the front, in handwriting she immediately recognized as Leo's. Her heart raced as she carefully opened the envelope. Inside, she found a meticulously handwritten letter. It was Leo's confession, a complete revelation of his true identity as a millionaire. He explained his reasons for disguising himself as a homeless person, his fears, and his internal struggle to find authenticity amidst his wealth. Clara read every word with a mix of shock and compassion. She couldn't believe Leo had kept this from her for so long. She sat in silence, letting Leo's words sink into her mind and heart. She thought about the days they had spent together, the honest conversations, the moments of shared laughter. For a moment, Clara felt betrayed by Leo's belated revelation. But as she reread the letter, she began to understand the complexity of his situation. She knew he wasn't trying to deceive her, but rather protect himself from a world he had never known until he met Clara. As she processed her thoughts, Leo entered the cafe and saw Clara holding the letter. Their eyes met, filled with questions and conflicting emotions. Leo approached her cautiously, unsure of what to expect. "Leo," Clara began, her voice gentle yet firm. "I found your letter." Leo was silent for a moment, feeling a lump in his throat. He knew the moment to reveal his true identity had come. Not in the way he had planned, but now it was inevitable. "Clara, he started, struggling to find the right words. But Clara raised her hand gently, interrupting him. "I understand, Leo. I understand why you did what you did." And in that moment, as the golden sunlight filled the cafe interior, Leo felt a mixture of relief and fear. He hoped their friendship could withstand this revelation, but now he knew it was all in her hands. Leo was alone in his apartment, looking out the window towards the distant city lights. He held the letter Clara had found, still feeling the weight of its words. The confession of his true identity had been a necessary step, but now he faced another emotionally challenging journey, the quest for forgiveness. Leo knew he had hurt Clara by hiding his truth for so long. He understood the impact of his choices and felt the weight of disappointment he might have caused her. Above all, he wanted Clara to understand that his intentions, though imperfect, stemmed from a place of fear and vulnerability. The next day, Leo found Clara at the cafe, determined to confront the conversation he had dreaded. He sat across from her, looking into her eyes with sincerity. "Clara," he began, his voice firm yet full of emotion, "I want to apologize for hiding who I truly am, for not being completely honest with you from the start." Clara looked at Leo with a mix of sadness and compassion. She knew Leo's revelation hadn't been easy for him, just as it hadn't been easy for her to process everything she had learned. She took a deep breath before responding, careful with her words. "Leo, I understand why you did what you did," she started softly, "but it was hard for me to find out all of this way." Leo nodded, feeling a lump in his throat tighten. He knew he couldn't change the past, but he was determined to make peace with his own conscience and, if possible, with Clara. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he continued, struggling to convey his gratitude for her friendship and his hope that she could forgive him. Clara looked at Leo for a moment before reaching across the table, holding his hand firmly in hers. "Leo," she said gently, "I forgive you." Clara's words brought immense relief to Leo, as if a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. He knew the road to full reconciliation would be long and challenging, but he was willing to walk it, one step at a time. That afternoon at the cafe, Leo and Clara discovered a new depth in their friendship. They learned together about forgiveness, vulnerability, and the complexity of human relationships. And most importantly, they discovered that despite imperfections and secrets from the past, true friendship could overcome even the toughest obstacles. Leo and Clara met again at the cafe. The atmosphere between them had shifted since the revelation and forgiveness. Now, there was a sense of renewal in the air, an opportunity for both to grow beyond the circumstances that had challenged them. Leo began to open up more to Clara, sharing not only his internal concerns and dilemmas, but also his dreams and aspirations. He found comfort in realizing that he could be true to himself with her, without the need for masks or disguises. Clara, in turn, was inspired by Leo's courage in facing his fears and seeking redemption. She saw in him an example of how vulnerability can be a strength rather than a weakness. She herself began to explore new facets of her own life, seeking meaning and purpose beyond external expectations. Together, Leo and Clara found a friendship dynamic enriched by honesty and mutual understanding. They supported each other in moments of doubt and celebrated their small victories together. The cafe became not just a place for casual meetings, but a space for personal growth and shared discovery. As the days passed, Leo and Clara discovered that overcoming was not just about resolving conflicts from the past, but also about embracing the future with courage and determination. They learned to cherish each moment together, knowing that every challenge was an opportunity for individual growth and to strengthen their friendship even more. And so, amidst shared smiles and deep conversations, Leo and Clara continued their personal journeys, knowing that true overcoming came not only from facing adversity, but also from finding mutual support and mutual growth along the way. The place was quiet, with few customers scattered at the tables. As they sat down, they exchanged meaningful glances, knowing that this moment was special, marked by everything they had been through together. Leo took a deep breath, feeling a mix of gratitude and nervousness. He knew it was time to take another step in the journey that had started with a simple decision to disguise himself as a beggar in that same cafe. Clara watched him with curiosity and anticipation, unsure of what he had planned. "Clara," Leo began, his voice firm yet laden with emotion. "Since the moment I walked into this cafe for the first time, my life has changed in ways I never imagined." Clara nodded, remembering that day as if it were yesterday. She never expected that a chance encounter could evolve into such a deep and meaningful friendship. "I felt lost for so long," Leo continued, his eyes meeting hers with sincerity. "But you brought light into my life. You've shown me the value of authenticity, compassion, and forgiveness." Clara smiled gently, touched by Leo's words. She knew their journey together hadn't been easy, but every challenge had been worth it to reach this moment. "I want to be completely honest with you, Clara," Leo said with determination. gently holding her hand. "I'm not just a man who decided to disguise himself as a beggar. I am Leo Collins, a businessman, a millionaire." Clara looked at Leo, surprised but not shocked. She felt the sincerity in his words, the courage to reveal his true self. She squeezed his hand softly, conveying support and understanding. "Leo," she began tenderly, "I know, I found the letter." Leo looked at her, surprised. He hadn't expected her to find out that way, but he was relieved not to have to hide anything from her anymore. "I wanted to tell you," he continued, "but I was afraid of losing you." Clara smiled, her eyes shining with affection. "Leo, you would never lose me. You gained my friendship from the moment we met." And in that moment, as the afternoon turned into a golden sunset beyond the cafe windows, Leo and Clara felt a deep peace and a connection that transcended words. They knew their journey together was just beginning, full of new discoveries, personal growth, and, above all, a true and lasting friendship. And so, Leo and Clara shared a warm embrace, knowing that their lives would never be the same, but that every challenge and every revelation had led them to a place of mutual understanding and unconditional acceptance. Click on the videos that are being recommended to you now.